Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beef Loaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located at 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday nights only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. You get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added, but at their normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all your carryout or delivery needs or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. This show is also powered by you, loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because that's how we paid and how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest, he's been on the White Sox beat at MLB.com for 22 years. A Michigan man that was wearing low-hanging shorts long before Chris Webber. Scott Merkin, welcome to the Au Jus.
I saw the low-hanging shorts. We had quite a challenge just to get me on. If the image starts to drop a little bit, it's because I can't hold the phone anymore. So it's like that movie. What was the movie Mel Gibson did a long time ago called Payback, where he has the security guys like hold their bags up in the air until he tells them not to, and they finally drop.
Yeah, this is like feats of strength you're performing right here, Mark. That's what it kind of is, right. Holding the phone up.
But now, since I have it in my hand, I have to dip down to the Michigan championship shirt there too. So
I know what's coming.
Got to do a little bit of everything there. I actually changed my shirt before this.
Was I telling the truth or lying? Were you wearing the baggy shorts before Chris Webber? I assume that you were. Okay.
Well, I wore baggy shorts, and I'm older than Chris Webber, so I think I was wearing it before Chris Webber and Jalen Rose and Juwan Howard and Ray Jackson. King. I almost combined that. I almost made it Ray King. Ray King was a pitcher. Yeah.
That's exactly. I'm not going to dare to ask you who your favorite member of the Fab Five is. That's probably maybe an unanswerable question. I don't know. Unless you have one instantly. I have no idea.
I'd probably go with Jalen. I think Jalen was. I like. If I can share this story, I don't think he'd care that I share this story. Brooks Boyer was a heck of a basketball player during his time, and I think for a while was like the leading 3-point shooter in Notre Dame history. I'm not sure if that still is. And he told this story. He's from Michigan, so he told this story about being in this 5-star camp, and he was getting ready to guard this guy, and he was kind of skinny, and he had baggy shorts, and he's like, "I'll take this guy. This will be no problem." Guy makes 2 moves, goes around him, slam dunks. It was Jalen Rose. So and then I believe Brooks was also on the court the first time Steve Fisher started the 5 freshmen together. It was at Notre Dame.
Okay,
so
I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure Brooks was on that team. Yeah. So I've never been able to find footage, but I know that was the first time. I think Ray Jackson was the last of the 5 to start. So that was the first time all 5 were together in the same lineup.
Oh, wow. We've had Brooks on the 108 podcast before a long time ago, and he told a bunch of Jordan stories from the time he was working for the Bulls.
He's got some good ones, yeah.
But he has some great ones, but he didn't tell any about him playing. We were trying to provoke him a little bit. I'm glad you were able to tell us one, Mert, because even like we told him, like, let's get a pickup game together, and then you'll come out and play, and he said, "Boys, I'm too old to run around anymore. I'll play horse." That's all he said, and that's why
Bologna's probably good.
Bologna's in comments says, "Give me Brooks Boyer versus Beef Loaf stop sign basketball." He's got the size advantage over me, and he's a much better shooter than I am. So I'm probably struggling that.
I'm sure he's still got it, even though he's been in the corporate world for how many years now? 30 years, something like that. I'm sure he's still got that shot.
I bet you could throw him out there and he bang 8 out of 10 threes unguarded. Right. Yeah, he'll probably knock those down. There's no question.
We commiserated together the weekend when Texas pummeled Michigan in football and NIU, who then lost to Buffalo, stunned Notre Dame in South Bend. So we both had a little talk about that one.
Came down a little bit after the championship.
That's right.
I expect that. Merk, I wanted to talk a little White Sox with you to start here. You often, I hear you on interviews and such, you often measure your career by how many managers you covered for the White Sox. My first question for you is, how was it this season covering 2 different managers? You had the incumbent Pedro Grifol, and then you have Grady Sizemore taking the throne after Grifol is let go. Can you tell me the differences and similarities between the 2?
Yeah, let's see if I can go down the list. It was Ozzie 8 years, Robin 5, 4 for Ricky, so that's 17. Yep. 2 for Tony and Cairo, so that's 19. 2 for Grifol, and then Sizemore 21. And then my first year was 03 Jerry Manuel. So I didn't know Jerry very well. I just got him at the last, And actually that team was in first place down to the last 2 weeks of of the season, and I think they lost 2 at home in a after taking the first 2 in a 4-game set against Minnesota, and then Minnesota beat them at the Metrodome, and Minnesota ended up winning that division that year. And then Ozzie took over in 2004. So
disappointing team, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the first time I've really had 2 managers, unless you count when Coop filled in for the 2 games when Ozzie left for Florida, or legitimately you count when Miguel Cairo took over when Tony was battling cancer, and thankfully successfully battled that and beat that, and now is with the team, all the time as a front office member. And it's interesting. Different people, different perspective, different times of season. I like Pedro. I don't know if I ever really got to know Pedro all that great. I mean, I knew him from covering him for 2 years and, 120 games. It didn't get to 120 this year. We had our ups and downs. We, like everyone does, there were some disagreements along the way. I think Grady has added a little bit of a morale boost, and I'm not sure if that was Pedro's fault that it had dropped a little bit because of the fact that they were losing all the time. I mean, when he was let go, it was in a 1-22 stretch, right? And they had just finished, the 21-game losing streak. So, morale's not going to be great if you're unless you start with a 40-game winning streak and then lose 21 in a row. Right. Morale ain't going to be good when you lose 20, no matter what. And the clubhouse is very good, but that's another question. But yeah, I like them both. I mean, the only way I knew, I covered Grady, believe it or not. I covered Grady in 2005.
Okay.
Big
when he
thorn.
was at Cleveland.
Big thorn in the side of the White Sox that year.
Such a good player. Such a good player before he got hurt.
Especially those 3 years with Cleveland. It's funny. Yeah. When he got hired, a lot of people talked about, he played 162 games 3 straight years. And I think there's a certain level of respect from the players among that he's been there, he's done this, he gets it. He gets the day-to-day stuff.
Right.
And I think he's really been more about, he wants to win. He doesn't go out there saying, well, geez, let's flip a coin and I hope we come out on top. And he's managing to win. But I think he's also managing to see what guys can do. And let's be honest, this was a really bad team. And they traded 6 guys at the deadline, right? Who were contributing. So you can't expect from that point on, they're going to go 30-10 after that. Now, it's no excuse. I mean, my argument, and we've talked about this quite a bit in the press box, is they were kind of designed to not be great this year, but I don't know why they had to be historically bad. That's the question that needs to be answered, and needs to be answered by Chris and Jerry and Josh Barfield and Gene Watson and Jin Wong and Brian Bannister. I could list the whole front office for time. Going into 25, because you don't want anything near this again next year. This is bad. It's bad when national media, who are great, it's great when they come out to cover the team,
but not
they're
for this
coming out to the team saying, I may have to stay another couple of days because they didn't lose. I mean, so that's not what you want your team to be known for. And you know what? Front office people and and players and former players have talked about that, about how they believe in Chris, but they have to get to this point where people come to say, we're going to the Sox to win. Right. Not hoping we have a chance, but going there to win and going there to get better. So to make a long answer, too late, short now, but I knew Grady from a player. I knew Grady from one interview I did with him in the offseason. Actually, he was with his kids at a soccer game when I interviewed him in the offseason. And I knew him from seeing him around the clubhouse, when he was a major league coach. But really got to know him a little better. Did a one-on-one with him recently. And, a good dude, a competitor. And I think would do a good job if he were given this job. I'm not sure if that's going to happen past the interim stage. But, yeah, I think it's a different thing. I think Pedro, it got to the point where you almost had to defend your work and defend your appearance as a manager. Not physical, but, as a manager. And it became almost more about – and I'm not casting aspersions because he's gone now. It's not his deal anymore. There's no reason to pile on after the fact. But, I mean, I think this was also done wrong in that it was portrayed as anything but a rebuild. Right. And I'm not sure if rebuilds are the thing anymore with the players so anti-tanking and putting those rules in. So, I think White Sox fans would have a much different perspective if they were 36 and 126, but getting the first pick overall in next year's draft, right?
Right. There'd be more excitement for sure.
Right.
There wouldn't be this as much. I mean, we'd be defeatist, but it wouldn't be as much, because you'd be thinking, okay, we get something out of this.
So I've enjoyed all the managers I've covered. I mean, like Jerry Manuel, I knew for one season, so didn't really get. Ozzie was the best. Ozzie was just a character. I mean, just some of the things that, we talked about and just joked about. And it shouldn't be forgotten that he knows baseball inside and out, too. He's a very smart baseball guy. So, But yeah, Pedro and Grady are different, but I think they're also different because it's different times of the year and different functions. I pointed this out. Pedro was in the front office for, I think, like 10 years in like minor league directing role. And then he told this great story when he got hired the day of his press conference, where he went to his family. He has 3 daughters, I want to say, and his wife, Allie, and said, I want to go for this dream, but this will change our family dynamic a little bit. I want to become a manager. And his daughters told him, you can't tell us to go for our dream if you won't go for yours, so go for it. So the guy works 10 years to get his dream. First year on the job, he's 7-21 in April. So, I mean, you're really swimming upstream from that point on, right? And he had like 2 good runs in the 2 years that he was in charge. So I can understand. I will say the one different thing is he did something different than most managers post-game. He spoke after the players. It's almost always manager first. Okay. It took a little while to get to him. It took about a half hour until he was ready. So I will say Grady is more expedient for the media, that's for sure. He gets out there and gets it done. And when he says he's going pregame, he's going pregame. I mean, he's good. They're both, good. I had a real good one-on-one with Pedro the Wednesday that a lot of people thought he was going to go, which was the Wednesday before that road trip to Minnesota and Oakland, where it went to 21 and they beat Oakland on a Tuesday night, I want to say.
I think that's right. Yep. And
he was great. I talked to him about, if he thought he was any good at the job he was doing. I talked to him about if he thought, kind of knowing that a move was in the offing.
Right.
If he left this job, would he be able to get another one? Would this stay with him forever? And he gave great answers. So, I mean, he was honest. I just think different personalities sculpted by different times for the team, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%, Scott, because there's different pressures when you're Grady popping in there after the thing is already blown up. Right. And it's just like, well, you're just trying to make the best of a tough situation here. Whereas it was Pedro from the year before, and he's been dealing with this for a while. Yeah, it's totally understandable there. Let me get you a couple drinks from the... I'll
point out real quick the other night, there was a bases loaded situation. It was a lefty. Maybe it was Tanner Scott on the mound for the Padres, and Grady left Dominic Fletcher in. There weren't a lot of pinch hitting options. I think Moncada, assuming they can use it. Hitting right-handed. Yes. But, Dominic has been a great defensive player in the short time that he's been playing right regularly, and they want to see what he can do offensively. Now, I would argue you're not going to make a value judgment in 15 games on a guy for the entire next season, just like there's always the warning of don't base someone's skill just on what they do in spring training. Right. But I can see where Grady is saying, okay, he may get this guy, he may not, but we got to see what he can do because he's going to be one of our guys for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to give him some rope here. Let me get to a couple drinks from the commenters. Senor Sachs, thank you. He says Pedro Grifal is a member of Hamas, allegedly. No, I don't think he is, Senor, but thank you for the drink. I appreciate you. And then my guy Baloney says, please use the proceeds of tonight's Super Chats for a phone stand for Merkman. Gonna leave tonight with an arm worse than Benintendi. So we're looking out for you. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. I'm looking at my place to try and find something to prop it up, and anything I can think of to prop up is going to give like a weird look up at my nostrils. So I'm not going to do that. Yeah, well, it's up to you, Merk. I don't know if you want weird nostril look. Anyway, we talked a little bit about the clubhouse there with discussion with Grady and Pedro. Right. Jeff Passan recently put out an article at ESPN where he portrayed sort of an upbeat tenor in the White Sox clubhouse. Is that kind of what you've noticed, Merk, from the players, is that they're more upbeat than you think they would be for a team that's trending towards an all-time record of losses?
Yeah, I think all credit to Jeff. I mean, but we've been writing kind of the similar thing all year. Jeff just did a deeper dive of a 24-hour period. And Jeff's great, obviously. But, I mean, I think we've been getting scorned for that all year by saying how great the clubhouse has been, and it really has been. I think it's been considerably better than last year. It really has, and I think that's made a difference. And players have talked about that over and over again about how they've stuck together. Corey Lee, who's become kind of a voice of that team, which is kind of cool to see.
It's interesting.
He talked yesterday about how guys always have each other's back, both on and off the field. So I think it's cool to see. And if that was one of Chris's goals, now when he says build a culture, I don't think he wanted just guys who can, play video games together and play cards together and go fishing on the off day. He wants them to win as a team too, but that may take a little bit. They weren't in the best of position coming in, and it's tough, but it's a really good clubhouse. It really is. There's no infighting, there's no finger pointing, and I guess it could easily go that way, right? With a team second straight year losing over 100, and now, one loss away from arguably being, I don't know how to say the worst pro sports team of all time, but the most losses in a single season, right, of a pro sports team of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and
that's a question for the people watching out there. We've discussed this. What's going to be worse? Sox, I love that this discussion go up, but what's going to be worse if they finish with 124 losses, just a round number? Yeah. That or the Cleveland Lions and Bucks team that all went winless in the NFL. Which one of those is a worse season do you consider overall?
The winless season, in my opinion.
I think so?
I think the winless seasons are worse. I mean,
I think the only difference is the Bucks were 14, and I think the Lions were 16, and maybe the Browns were 17. So it's a lot less than 162, obviously. We were with some of this the other day. There was a great old coach. I don't know if you know his name, John McKay.
Yeah,
he was a star. Yeah, a star at USC, and then went to the Bucks. And during that winless season, someone asked him. I think I'm paraphrasing, but someone asked him, "What do you think of your team's execution?" And he said, "I'm all for it." That's pretty good.
Yeah, that could be applied in some ways to this White Sox team in certain instances because that's been tough.
Now, that's one thing that has not gone up to what Chris said. Chris talked again about being a better fundamental team, being a better defensive team, and that has not played out at all this year. So they have developed a good core, and maybe 3 or 4 years from now, they knock on wood, when this team is contending, they can look back at 24 and say, "Oh, that year hurt just as bad as 23, but we had guys who helped kind of build the precepts of what we wanted in this organization."
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of guys who I would consider as a major part of the core, Luis Robert Jr. is having an absolutely brutal year, Merk. And his first several years, whether marred by injury or not, he was pretty much an all-star. I mean, like that was the caliber of play. This year, it's fallen down quite a bit. How is he dealing with that in the locker room? When you interact with him, how is he dealing with the fact that he's having the worst year of his career?
He's been good. He talks with Billy Russo does the interpreting. I think Luis has a pretty good working knowledge of English, but I understand he feels much more comfortable doing the interviews with Billy, and I totally get that. Yeah. He's been fine. I see him interacting with other players. I think he is an influence on some of the younger players there. I see him talking to Miguel Vargas, and of course, Moncada's now back in his locker, back for at least 3 games next to Robert back there. It's interesting because Robert came off legitimately one of the more complete seasons in White Sox history in 23, right?
Yep.
38 homers, 36 doubles, 20 stolen bases. I think 90 runs scored, 86 RBIs, whatever it was, Gold Glove caliber defense. And for whatever reason, it just has not been there. He's gone a while without a home run right now.
Yeah.
Grady pointed out, and Grady again knows this from being a player, that serious injury. I was there in Kansas City when he rounded first, and you're like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
And fought his way back, and wasn't like, oh, he's got a hamstring pull. We'll see you in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. This is a few months of rehab to get back. Then he comes back and deals with all the trade rumors, so it probably was not the easiest year. Now, I guess the people would argue, and there's a lot of people arguing this year, and understandably so. I get it. I've said that in my newsletters, in my articles. I get the fans' ire and disgust this year 100%, but they would argue, well, he gets paid to perform, right? And he needs to work around that. But I just think it's one of those years where he's expanded the zone a little bit. He's chased more, which he did not do last year. And people forget he started off slow last year and then crushed it. But I still would bet on Luis Robert, 10 out of 10 times. I think, whether it's with the Sox next year, and I think it will be at least at the start with the White Sox next year, or whether they move him to somewhere else, I think he's going to be a contributor. And he's a force. He's as talented. I mean, he's in the team picture for the most talented, raw talent guys in the game.
Yes,
can hit for power, hit for average, can throw, can play defense, can run. There's not much he can't do. So, I think he really kind of gets the game, and he's just having a bad year since he's come back from being hurt.
Yeah, well, that's what I worry about, Merk. He's one of my favorite players, and I find myself defending him a lot because people will say, oh, well, he's giving up on the team. And I'm like, bullshit. I see him out there making diamond catches. I see him stealing bases, when the power's not there, and he's trying to contribute in any way he can. And I feel bad because when you look down the line and you're like, well, this is a record-losing team here, that's the superstar. He's got to feel extra pressure on himself that, like, man, this is my fault to some extent because I'm the only one who's like a real star in this offense.
Well, especially because there's no offense, right?
Right.
The offense has been bad, very bad, record-setting bad. Yep. I think like one of the worst OPSs and OBPs in baseball history. as a team. So he's the guy, right? So he's probably putting extra pressure on himself to drive in 4 with one guy on base, so that
exactly.
That makes a difference too. And then remember, he wasn't the only one hurt. Eloy was hurt. Moncada was hurt.
Yep.
Benintendi and Vaughn had very slow starts to the whole first half, pretty much, right?
Yeah, they started off real bad.
It was just a very, it's the Sox came in with no room for error and had nothing but air since basically the first week of the season, right? I think Eloy got hurt 3 games in, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And Robert was April 9th, and I think Moncada was April 11th. So, by the end of 10 days, it was like, oh boy, here we go.
The best players are out.
Yeah, I would still bet on Robert. I would still say this guy is going to be a force for many years to come.
Absolutely. Speaking of guys I want to bet on in the future, to me, Brian Ramos is an impressive young kid.
There's no betting on baseball, not for me at least. Figuratively, I would say bet Luis Robert is going to be outstanding. How about that?
Yes. Right, exactly. And we think this person will do well. Exactly. That's exactly right. My guy Brian Ramos, he's an impressive young man. It seems like every time he surfaces on the roster, you guys, the beat does go to him for quotes and everything. Do you think he's an integral part of the 2025 team?
He has some great stories. How he kind of worked to learn English. And I was told by someone in the organization that one of the ways he helped or he picked up English was he listened to a rapper named Lil Baby, who I've never heard of before, but I looked up and there is someone named that who I'm sure makes a fortune doing what he's doing. And then the fact that he became a U.S., he studied and became a U.S. citizen. Yeah. It was very cool. We talked to him and he told us that for the citizenship test, you needed 7 out of 10 to pass. And he paused and smiled and said, I got 10 out of 10. So you can tell he was very proud. Great kid, beloved throughout that organization, very highly respected. They have an interesting decision to make, though, because they have Vargas, who was the cornerstone of the trade, the 3-player trade they acquired from the Dodgers, and Ramos, who are both third basemen. You have Colson Montgomery, who's right now a shortstop, 100%, but some people think maybe a third baseman at some point, certainly not a second baseman.
Yep.
So you got to figure out what you're going to do, right? You got to figure out how you're going to. Now, both Vargas has played other positions. Ramos has done some pregame work in the outfield. Ramos has played second in the minors. So maybe you look at that. But see, now that would be my argument when they talk about, well, we can't play Moncada in the last couple of weeks because Vargas and Ramos are our future. And Moncada is well aware that the Sox, they're not picking up. I'm not even going to make a comparison. They're not picking up this $25 million option. They're going to use the $5 million buyout and he'll become a free agent. When I talked to him with Billy the other day, he mentioned that he's got a lot of years left, but he has to wait until free agency starts to see what the next step is.
Right.
But if you're going to do that, why not play Ramos? Give him a couple games at second base.
Just see
or give him a game in left field just to see. Again, you don't want to, crush the kid's confidence, but send him out there and just say, hey, whatever happens, we just want to see what you can do out there. Take the skills you've worked on and show us what you got. Andrew Vaughn played second base in a game in Kansas City. Andrew Vaughn became a right fielder, having worked at the satellite camp during the COVID year.
Yeah.
And then 3 days after Eloy hurt himself at the end of spring training. So, that would be my argument is if you're going to use the guys now who are your future, then not, just go willy-nilly and have Benintendi catch one day. But,
right.
Let Ramos try.
Take a look. See a little bit of some of this stuff.
Grady has said he wants Vargas at third. So let Ramos move around a little bit and see what he can do. Because I think he's a great guy to have in that clubhouse. And I think he's going to hit for power, too. I think he's probably the better third baseman between him and Vargas right now. So we'll see what ends up coming out of that. But, I agree with you. He's a good guy to talk to. He's very pleasant, very upbeat. Just really seems to enjoy, not that everyone else isn't either, but really seems to enjoy being a professional baseball player.
I love it. I'm enthused every time he's out on the field or whatever. He looks like he has great joy out there playing as well. So that's pretty cool.
Just to tell you, so far the arm is doing okay. I'm worried about the elbow though. By the time we're done here,
I might have to pay for some medical bills with the elbow.
That's right.
We'll see how it goes. Chris Getz has been extremely frank lately, talking about the team, the approach, heading into the offseason and everything. Merk, what do you expect with regards to free agency, and what do you expect with regards to additional shakeups potentially in the front office? Because Getz has been out here saying basically the truth is the way it lays, and it's pretty rare for a GM to do this.
Yeah, I think that it bothered people the way it came out, but I don't think it's anything that he hadn't said before, really. I mean, I don't think anyone was like, well, they're going to lose 125, but man, I can't wait till they get in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. I don't think that was happening. So I think they'll have to add some people, but I think it'll be kind of what they added last year too. I don't know if they'll even be to use a comparison to like another rebuild in town. I don't even know if it'll be like when Edwin Jackson signed with the Cubs. I don't think you'll even see something of that level. Okay. But you look across, the AL Central, and you see the Royals switching hands here, by the way, who spend very wisely this offseason, did not go crazy, but added a lot of key pieces. Now they've kind of faded down the stretch a little bit, but they were great. I think they missed Pasquantino, who got hurt. But I mean, Waka, Lugo is probably going to be, get Cy Young consideration.
Yep.
The guy they traded for from Oakland, even adding Gurriel, Tommy Pham has been a nice addition. So you don't have to go out and spend $300 million to make yourself a good team. You just got to identify the guys who are going to fit. With that said, I'm not even sure the Sox are going to do that. I think Getz is still adding on to his group. But again, you have to understand, better or worse, this is the second year of a rebuild. So I think what Chris was really trying to say was, and I don't put words in his mouth because I'm sure he'll do his season ender here and, one of these 3 days coming up in the Angels series. But I think he was trying to say, we're developing these young guys. There are going to be more young guys at the big league level next year, and we need to see what they have before we go add pieces. So now I would argue if you have the money, you can add pieces and still develop the guys, but
true,
that may not be the case for them. So I don't, expect them to be big into free agency. I think their biggest move of the offseason is going to be whoever they decide, at some point in October or early November to hire as manager.
I think I agree with you. I mean, they're going to use the utility of 7,000 plate appearances and 1,450 innings to see what they have kind of in the house for the most part, and then start dealing with it.
They don't have young guys to cover every spot, so they're going to have to add, some veterans. They're going to have, and I don't know if that's packaging. They have a ton of pitching, a ton as in like comparative to their position players, talent coming up in the system, but they do have 9 to 11, 10 to 12 guys who you look at and say, yeah, at some level, these guys are going to help, whether it's in the rotation, in the bullpen, whatever it is. So maybe you package a couple of them and go get offense with that. Maybe you identify who are the core, who's that next level, and then from there you make moves and add on. But, I could see them, adding a couple free agents to help fill things out too, because I don't think it's going to be a completely young team next year.
I agree with you. I think they'll do a little bit, but it's not. They're not going to be signing guys to 4-year deals. Is my thought? It's going to be one year flip here, and maybe with a club option or something like that.
That would be what I would expect, something along those lines.
So going back to the Jeff Passan article, he brought up something that I hadn't seen out there before, and maybe you guys on the beat kind of did know this, but because of the positioning in the front office, it wasn't really sort of a big discussion point, but. The White Sox brought in former Navy SEAL Brian Mahler into the organization. Do you have any specifics on what he does? I was even looking for a picture of this guy, and the best I could find was him playing lacrosse at Harvard a million years ago, and you can't even see his face. I'm like, is this guy being protected by the government? Is that why I can't find a picture of him? So I was curious what you know about the guy, Merk.
Yeah, I haven't really talked to him much. He's been there since the beginning of the season, though. This was not like a hire that happened 2 weeks ago. And the people I talked to who have dealt with him, love him. So I think they really like what he's presenting. I think he's part of the whole process to kind of reconfigure this. And Chris has talked about this. And Chris has talked about building better infrastructure and just building a way, top to bottom. But here's the thing. Like, I think Brian was a good hire. Like I said, the people who I've talked to him have worked with him and know him far better than me. Rave reviews about what he's done for the organization so far. What he's added to the organization. I don't know about done yet. But the bottom line is you can build the infrastructure. You can add on analytics. You can develop a farm system. You got to win. Sox fans have just dealt with I will tell. I've told this story 30 times. I'll tell it 31. But I was there when Yohan Moncada made his debut for the White Sox in the last rebuild and had like a 6-pitch at bat and fouled the pitch off and got a standing ovation. I was there when
I was given the ovation. I was in the house.
I'm sure you were. I was there when Michael Kopech was announced on Twitter on a Sunday that he was starting on a Tuesday, and people went nuts. Fans deserve a ton. They embraced every step of that rebuild, and they got 2 playoff wins out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you can talk infrastructure, you can talk building, you can talk developing, you can talk improving everything. ultimately you got to put it at the top of your chart and circle it. I just made a circle motion. You can't see it on here though. How do we win? How do we win, and how do we win consistently? And I think Sox fans would even take win for a year at this point, right? I mean, I think if you told Sox fans you're going to lose 125, but you're going to make the LCS the next year, I think they'd be okay with that.
100%.
You know? I think a lot of fans would be okay with that, actually, probably. But yeah, that's the thing. It's all great to have a plan, but you got to execute that plan and execute it to the point of winning and winning consistently.
Totally agree. We talked a little bit about Grady earlier. Were you surprised how candid he was about Yohan Moncada's situation and with regards to Ramos and Vargas? Because speaking of this team, like Getz has been talking very frankly, and to me, Grady was extremely frank about how that was going to work. He did not like do the old PR thing where he tried to talk around it. He basically said, "Look, Moncada's going to sit. These guys are going to play. We'll see if we can get Moncada in there."
I mean, I wasn't that surprised by that. I was more surprised by how frank Moncada was when I talked to him with Billy on Friday in San Diego. Okay. He was basically saying, like, you know, I was hurt. I thought I'd be back to playing when I came here, and it's not. I don't really know what they want, but, you know, it's not my call, and I'm just here. So I know he probably did not expect to come in there, and what was he back for? He was back for the road trip, right? So what was that, like 15 games total? Yeah, like 15 games. So I assume he didn't expect he was going to get 60 at-bats in those 15 games. Right. But I also don't think he expected to get one pinch running appearance and one, you know, ensuing it back because he stayed in the game. So I was more surprised by how direct Moncada was. You know, he wasn't, you know, in their face, but he was kind of like, yeah, I don't get it. You know, I mean, but he was also saying, it's not my decision. So I'm just here to do what they asked me to do pretty much. But there was no.
In your interview, Merk, there was a level of disappointment. He's disappointed not being out there to play, even though the team is bad or whatever. He wants to be out there to contribute. It's obvious, you know.
I would say this: I get that, you know, it took a while for him to come back from his injury. His injury was not, you know, a mild one. I mean, you saw the replays that he was doubled over and, you know, on the ground, not even doubled over. He was on the ground in pain in Cleveland when he hurt himself running to first base. Ultimately, it's a player who knows how he feels, and if he says he's not ready, then you got to go with the player. But I'll go back to the same thing. I totally get that Vargas and Ramos and maybe even Amaya, who's playing short, are part of the future, Fletcher and Wright. But again, I think we're talking, you know, 15 games. Now we're talking 6 games. So if this happened like with 60 games left, I could see where they would say, well, he's not going to play a lot because we got to get – I mean, it's 15 games, 9 games, 12 games, 6 games. But again, not my call. You know, I'm not the GM, nor am I the manager of that team. So I trust what they're doing. And even Moncada said not even his call. So he's just going with what he's got.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable. You mentioned it previously that you thought probably the big move this offseason is going to be the White Sox in the manager search. Question for you. How quickly do you expect Getz to hire the person? And then what do you expect in the candidate? Is there anything in particular you're thinking about, like that they seem to want or that they want to bring in?
I really have not heard a ton. I've heard that it will be someone, you know, a little bit more analytically inclined, but I think Pedro was analytically inclined when he came in, you know?
Right, yeah.
So, and Tony, in his own way, kind of helped develop analytics, right? When he was the manager of Oakland. Yeah, way back when. Right. Yeah. You know, I mean, using certain guys for certain roles and that kind of thing. So I think that has something to do with it, but I don't have a gut feeling. It's been very quiet. Now, I don't know if they're just putting a list together, checking with everyone they know to make sure they get the right candidates. And then once the season ends Sunday, they really go hard after it and, you know, try and get it done in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think Pedro was hired, I want to say like November 2nd. So it could take the entirety of October. I mean, Skip Schumacher has connections to Tony La Russa from his playing days.
Right.
It appears he's not going to stay in Florida. It also appears he's going to be a very popular candidate. So does he want to go?
The Reds just dumped their manager too. So, I mean, there's other jobs that are going to be available, you know?
Does he want to go from Florida, which was a brutal situation, to the White Sox, which doesn't look a ton better right now? So, you know, although both teams have some players coming. So that's the question. But yeah, I wish I could give you like 4 names that I know, but I've heard more that guys who probably aren't going to be it than guys who are going to be definitely in the running for it so far.
It's interesting. Now, there's no rules against them hiring during the playoffs, is there, Merk? Like they can. I think it's just not the World Series week or like what are the the blackouts restrictions?
Yeah, I think they don't usually do it like LCS or World Series, but you can do it, I think, on the off days and that kind of thing. Understandably, baseball likes its focus to be on the crown jewels when it comes, right? So absolutely. I don't even know if there's like an official rule on that. I think teams just don't do it usually.
Makes sense. Does Garrett Crochet get traded this offseason, Mark?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say, in my opinion, you don't, because, man, if you have Garrett Crochet and Hagen Smith and you have Noah Schultz and Jonathan Cannon and Sean Burke and Davis Martin, you got a pretty good crew there.
You do.
The problem is, though, that it looks like Garrett is going to probably end up wanting to go to free agency, which is understandable. He had a great first year as a starting pitcher, probably going to even get better. So are you going to be good in the 2 years of control you have him? And if not, is that another way by trading Garrett? They had some really good offers that I heard and some good interest in him right down to the wire. They just couldn't get the complete package that they wanted. So is that a way to, improve your offense by trading for guys there, by trading Garrett Crochet? It's tough because, man, you're trading Garrett Crochet to find Garrett Crochet, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're hoping you have another Garrett Crochet come along to lead the staff is what you're hoping for, right?
I mean, he's tremendous. He's had,
a stud.
I think if the team was better, not even like good, just better, he'd be looked at as one of the better. I mean, there's two pitching stories in Chicago overall, Crochet and Imanaga, who have been two of the better stories in baseball this year, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
They've been phenomenal. They've been phenomenal. So, I think he's going to end up going, though. I think he will, but I think it's not a slam dunk because he means so much, and he really works with the younger hitters, and he's a good guy. He's a good guy in the clubhouse, and just sorry, someone's calling me, and I see him a lot of times talking with Cannon. I see him talking with I'm blanking on his name. The guy they got. Why am I blanking on the pitcher from San Diego who had surgery?
Drew Thorpe.
Drew Thorpe. Oh my God. I think my arms are so sore that I'm losing focus.
We're almost there.
They're all, you see them talking a lot. So abundantly beneficial to keep Garrett Crochet, but they have to weigh the cost of, if you're just going to have him for 2 years, does it make more sense to get more for him now? So that's right. One of the many, many decisions Chris in the front office will have to encounter.
Absolutely. Do they trade Luis Robert Jr. this offseason?
I think they listen. Chris has made it clear from last year at the GM meetings in Arizona that no one is untouchable. But I don't know with the year he's had, which has been a down year, which he would admit to, and the injury that he had, if it's going to be a slam dunk that he's going to be gone. I would bet that he's got 1 year left. And I think two $20 million options, if I'm remembering right.
I think that's right.
So you have potential for 3 years control. So even if you keep him into the trade deadline, you can still probably get a pretty good return if that's what you choose to do. I would guess right now he starts the season with the White Sox.
Yeah, if the intention is to trade, you would want some of that bounce back performance. You figure he's coming off his worst season, and he's not going to ever have a season that bad again. And if that was your intention,
I would guess if the offer is there that blows Chris away or knocks him over and says I can't pass it, then they trade him. I mean, again, you look at what you're going to have the next couple of years, and at least 25 and maybe 26, you probably are not going to be competitive. Now, I mean, Kansas City did show. Now, they did have 3 bad years before the 106 losses last year, but they did go from 106 losses to, the cusp of the playoffs, maybe the playoffs. We'll see how the last week plays out. So you can turn around, but I don't know if the Sox are in that position yet because there's just not enough position player talent to kind of fill it in yet, I think.
I love Luis, but he's not Bobby Witt Jr.
In fairness to Luis, who is, right?
Who is, exactly.
Maybe Ohtani. Bobby can't pitch.
That's right up there.
Judge maybe is in there, and that's about it. Bobby Witt's one of the best. There's no question.
Absolutely. All right, let's close this out with some fun stuff. I believe that you're a guy that likes to go to Vegas at the end of the season, decompress a little bit. Where are some of your favorite places to stay, Merk, when you're in Vegas? I'm a Vegas guy too. I like going out to Vegas. It's a fun time. So,
my cousins, my dad's brother. Sadly, they're both not with us anymore. My dad and his brother, my Uncle Al, was a pediatrician out there for 60 years. So I've been going there since I was a young kid. I wasn't there the whole time he was a pediatrician, obviously, but I've been going there where you went to shows and it was tipping the croupier to get the good seats, not Ticketmaster. So I've stayed at pretty much every hotel, but now, as most baseball writers do, I have a ton of Marriott points. So I stay a lot at this one called the Marriott Chateau, which is kind of like a timeshare hotel combo right next to Planet Hollywood. But here's the interesting thing, and I don't know if people know this. I'll provide a little information. Almost half the hotels on the Strip are now owned by Marriott. Really? So like, whatchamacallit, Bellagio is Marriott, MGM is Marriott, Mandalay Bay is Marriott. If you want to stay Luxor or Excalibur, good luck to you. They're Marriott. So a lot of options now. So I've stayed pretty much. There's very few hotels. If I haven't stayed there, I've pretty much chosen not to stay there, I think. So
that's been on your own. Yeah.
Caesars is great. Caesars is great for Old World Vegas. Yeah. Love Mandalay Bay. When I was younger, I used to stay at the Luxor a decent amount. I used to get a lot of upgrades there, so I like that one.
Yeah.
But now it's more the Marriott part. There's a Marriott that I stay at, which people don't get, but I stay. It's in Summerlin. It's at the Rampart Casino. It's a resort. Now it's a little ways away. People, I think, when they think Vegas, are like, you got to stay on the Strip, right? So no one gets that one. But that's right. Another one I've stayed at. But now with so many options, I have to be able to find one on the Strip when I go out there.
I love it. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize Marriott was the kind of the backing hotel chain of the MGM property.
It just became that like at some point this past year.
Okay, all right.
So it was not that very long. It there were always Marriott properties out there. You can stay at the Residence Inn 2 blocks from the football stadium or whatever if you want to do that. But now a lot of the main hotels have joined the Marriott Starwood chain there.
Okay, interesting. Machines or table games, Mark?
If it's machines, it's video poker.
Any particular varietal of video poker that you like?
No, I like the basic one, maybe with the caveat of being able to double. They used to have that where if you win, you can play high-low to double it. Yes. Of course, you win, like you get a full house and you win something good, and then you double it and you lose, then you're pissed at yourself, right? But exactly. The like 10 play or 50 play is almost too much for me at this point. I will tell you this,
that's what I like, Merk. I like the 10 play and I like double super times pay. So I like that or Ultimate X, but I feel like I lose my money fast at Ultimate X. That's a
and I've seen it on social media. You win a lot, right? You
win all the time. I win occasionally. Yeah, I win some stuff. Yeah.
So I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Reno for my cousin Sarah's bat mitzvah. This is in 2009, I think. Okay. And it was in the off season, so I stayed an extra day. I'd never been to Reno. So I'm playing blackjack at Harrah's for like an hour. I win $20, and I'm like, I'm not going home up $20. I'm going to play this and see what I can do. So I go to one of those slot machines sing throughout the state of Nevada. Okay. The jackpot's like $13 million. I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm going to tell all my friends how I played $20 and won $13 million. So I play slots. I don't like slots. They're mind-numbing. I don't even get how you win on it. It's no longer the cherries and the bells and whatever. It's a whole bunch of things.
It's not the reels. It's all this other shit.
Exactly. Yeah. I get up like $160. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to play down to 100 and then go home $100 winner. Get down to 130, play it. Lights and bells start going off. It's going crazy. I know it's not the ultimate jackpot, but I'm thinking, what did I win? I think I won $2,900.
Holy moly. So nice. Pretty cool. So I said off $20.
$2,900 is too low to get a check. So they gave me $2,900 bills. So I'm walking back to my hotel literally with my hand on my wallet in my pocket. Like, I might as well have yelled at everyone, hey, I have $2,900 bills in my wallet. Come stop by.
Come get me. Come find me.
Exactly.
I love it. Merk, what about dinner spots? Where do you like to eat when you're in Vegas? Vegas, a lot of people who don't go to Vegas a lot don't know they have like the most world-class restaurants anywhere on earth.
I always say now Vegas is so different from when I was like a young kid there where I couldn't really do anything anyways. But, now it's like, if you want to go and have a bachelor party weekend there and get a little wild, you can. You want to go and see sporting events and play golf, you can. When you want to go with your wife or girlfriend and have dinner and see shows, you can. Or you want to go with your family, you can. There's really something for everyone. I should work for the Vegas Tourist Bureau. I love Sinatra. At I can't think where it's. I want to say Venetian or Palazzo. Is that that's the one attached to the Venetian? I think.
Yeah.
It's Encore and Wynn, so it's Venetian and Palazzo. Yep. I think it's at the Palazzo. It's great. I love the Rat Pack. I'm a big fan of the Rat Pack.
Love it.
So there's a lot of cool stuff in there. The food's really good there. Delmonico's, which is a Emerald Lagasse place over the Venetian. That's really good. I'm trying to think of any other places. I mean, really, there's nothing bad there, I was
going to say, there's great restaurants everywhere you walk.
Yeah. Like every hotel, whether it's 5-star or 3-star, has a steakhouse and some sort of sushi place. The buffets are much less prevalent now after COVID, but
yeah,
Sinatra was my thing. I love Sinatra. It's my favorite restaurant out there, I think.
Beautiful. I have to try it. I used to go to Carne Vino when it was in Palazzo, but that closed down.
Okay.
I used to like that place a lot. Currently, I like Amalfi in Caesars.
I've heard of that one too. Yeah, I've heard of that. They have one in Caesars called Grand Lux Cafe. Have you ever been? No, I'm kidding.
I have been to Grand Lux Cafe, but yeah, no, that's
I'm sure you could talk to 10 people and get 10 different recommendations for restaurants in Vegas.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I feel like it's such a vast pool of restaurants, and everyone likes a little bit of something different. So, well, Merk, thanks for sharing your thoughts on White Sox managers and clubhouse,
my pleasure.
The near future of the organization, and Vegas, baby, Vegas. We ain't trying to be right on this show. We're just trying to understand. Anything you want to plug before you go?
No, I mean, you can find me at Scott Merkin on Twitter. More importantly, at whitesox.com, at MLB.com. I want to close with a quick story. I was walking back from the ballpark last night, going to get an Uber to my hotel, which is a little bit off the gas lamp area there. What a great area, by the way. What a great ballpark.
It's awesome. San Diego.
And there were like 4 or 5 White Sox fans walking towards me wearing jerseys. And I don't know if I knew the guy and just didn't recognize him, or he knew me and he just looked at me and he goes, "It's almost over, Merk. It's almost over." Hey, I mean, I know it can get worse, but I feel like this is it. And it's incumbent on Chris and everyone else to not let it come close to this again with the White Sox.
I absolutely agree. And hope, and fingers crossed that they do that job and take it seriously.
Exactly.
Take care, Merk. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you.
Anytime. Thank you.
You got it. That was Scott Merkin. That was great. That was terrific. Next week's guest, I'm going to have on someone that I've been a fan of for a long time. I subscribe to his newsletter, and that's Joe Sheehan. He's going to come on here. He was one of the people that predicted the White Sox having kind of a rough year. He predicted 54 and 108. He was a longtime Baseball Prospectus, Sports Illustrated. Now he has Joe Sheehan newsletter. Just a legend in the content game, the baseball content game. I'm really excited to have him on next week. That should be a lot of fun. I want to thank Punky's Pizza and Pasta and all the 108 families up in the YouTube comments. Appreciate you smashing the like button, comments, and of course, drinks and tips. We'll see you next Monday with Joe Sheehan. And make sure you show up for the 108 podcast Thursday night. We need you there, baby. Love you.